After 2 weeks of stories about exorcisms, I need to take a step back and do some lighter material. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to rapid fire some of the craziest conspiracies found online. Is Jesus Christ buried in Japan? Have aliens been monitoring us for 13,000 years? Was Taylor Swift bred in a laboratory? Was Zeena LaVey's DNA? Welcome to History, Mystery, and the Unexplained, the show where we look at everything from true crime to cryptids, the paranormal, and beyond. Before we get started, please like, subscribe, follow, or whatever on the platform of your choice. And be sure to leave us a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Let's start with one of the most ridiculous ones on this list. Nicolas Cage is a vampire.
I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!
This one stems from an eBay post in 2012 where a Seattle man found a picture from 1870 that bore a striking resemblance to the star. In the listing, he says that he believes it's him and that he is some sort of walking undead or vampire who reinvents himself once every 75 years or so. Whether this was meant as a joke or a grab at the requested $1 million for the picture isn't clear. Although there is a striking resemblance, here's what Cage had to say about it.
And the guy's theory is that you look exactly the same now, and therefore that makes you a vampire.
Right.
That's the theory.
Yeah,
That's
except there's a photograph of me, and you can't take
This
pictures.
is you from Moonstruck 1987, and they say it looks just like you.
Well, now look, I don't drink blood, and last time I looked in the mirror, I have a reflection, so I'm not going to hit vampire theory. I'm just not going to do it.
So that's it. Case solved, right? He has a reflection, he doesn't drink blood, and pictures can be taken of him. He can't be a vampire, especially since he's an alien. This one dates back to at least 2020 and is based on the belief that Cage was abandoned on our planet by his extraterrestrial parents as a baby. He was then discovered by Francis Ford Coppola, who raised him as his nephew. Over time, he would impersonate others' actions and voices and developed his own unique personality. This one is just as easy to debunk, I'm sure. Right? Well, maybe not. In a 2020 interview with Ramp Style magazine, he was asked, what was Nicolas Cage before he became a Hollywood star? And he replied, an alien. Actually, those were my father's words. He once told me that he felt he had to introduce himself to me because I was such an alien, whatever that meant. I remember being shocked the day I went to a doctor's office as a child and found out that I had normal organs and a normal skeleton just like everyone else, because I was certain that I was from another planet. I had difficulties connecting to other people. When I saw David Bowie, the man who fell to earth, I realized I needed to do something. So I became an actor. And this, my friend, is how these things start. Of course, my father told me that if spiders get into the four corners of the house, that will teleport to another dimension. So, who am I to judge? Birds aren't real. Okay, this one is more of an honorable mention rather than an actual conspiracy theory. As one version of the legend goes, in 1986, Ronald Reagan had all the birds in the world destroyed and replaced with drones.
Do you like our owl?
It's artificial?
Of course it is.
In a 2022 interview with 60 Minutes, then 24-year-old Peter McKindo admitted that the whole thing was a hoax. He was with a group of friends on a rooftop in Memphis on the day after Donald Trump's inauguration in 2017, and he was listening to the demonstrators below. What if, it was suggested, someone were to hold up a sign that had nothing to do with anything down there? Birds aren't real was born. Sign in hand, McKindo went down to the street and started chanting, "Wake up, America! Birds are not real." Quickly, it spread across America. There was graffiti, chants, protests. It took on a life of its own, and McKindo embraced it. He created a YouTube channel, a folklore, a merch line. He even hired an actor to play the role of CIA whistleblower.
Now, after the living birds were taken out of the picture, what was the next step?
Well, they were replaced with fake birds. They were electronic decoys.
Despite this being a well-established fabrication, there are still believers. And again, there are people who believe the world is flat and the moon landing was fake. So why not? There is a theory that Michael Jackson and Latoya Jackson are one and the same. Despite the fact that there are numerous pictures of the two together, this one still persists. The idea here is that in 2009, Latoya got sick of playing two roles and decided to kill off Michael in favor of keeping Latoya. The evidence of his death being faked is the fact that the casket was closed, the funeral was private, and his mausoleum is unmarked. Why they chose to kill off the one with the more popular career isn't really clear. It may have been in part due to the very public Neverland Ranch scandals, but Latoya was notably outspoken against her brother, or herself, if we believe this one. And in 2018, the TV show Hollywood Medium, Latoya met with medium Tyler Henry, who recalled Michael's final moments to her, stating that he had no one there to help him and he had been abandoned. She was very moved, saying,
I think what hurts more than anything else is that not only was there a need for someone to be there for him, but there was a trusted person, a person that he trusted, a person that was in that inner circle, and that person wasn't there. And just to hear that, just really, it tears you apart. I just wanted to just cry.
Obviously, if pictures of the two of them together when he was alive doesn't prove that they're not the same person, Michael talking to his sister from beyond the grave isn't going to prove much either. Speaking of lookalikes, there is a theory that Taylor Swift is in fact a clone of former high priestess and spokesperson of the Church of Satan, Zeena LaVey. I have to admit they are strikingly similar. Zeena LaVey, now Zeena Shrek, is the daughter of Anton LaVey, who founded the Church of Satan. She was the head of the church from 1985 until 1990. Taylor was born in 89, which somehow proves this theory to believers. Considering no humans have ever been cloned, at least not to public knowledge, who has the money and power to do such a thing? The Illuminati, of course. In fact, Keanu Reeves, Avril Lavigne, Gucci Mane, Kanye West, and many, many more are all clones. Despite the fact that Dolly the sheep wasn't even cloned until 1996, there are still those that believe that Taylor was cloned in 89. What's even crazier is that Paul McCartney sometimes gets lumped into this conspiracy, saying that he died in the 60s and was replaced by a man named Billy Shears. Okay, that one might not be a clone, but a look-alike body double. In most of these cases, the celebrity dies and is replaced by an Illuminati double. The Swift LaVey seems to be the only one whose pair is still alive. What proof is there? Well, let's start with the music. Starting with the oldest of these cases, Paul McCartney. There is supposedly a hidden message, Paul is dead, miss him. On Abbey Road, John Lennon is heard saying, I buried Paul. What more proof do you need, right? Let's look at the other artists. Conspiracy theorists say Avril Lavigne's double was named Melissa before she replaced the star. In the song Slipped Away, she says, the day you slipped away was the day I found it won't be the same. Obviously, she's talking about her clone. What? You need more proof? Okay, well, how about a publicity photo where Avril has Melissa written on her hand? Why she would need to write her clone's name on her hand or her own name if she is the clone, I don't know. But that's the proof we have. One more. Let's bring it back to where we started. Taylor Swift. First, she has no belly button. Obviously a clone. She actually had to address this in 2014 to prove to the public that she did in fact have one. Maybe they realized their mistake and added one later. You ever think of that? More proof? Again, let's look at the music. The video for Bad Blood is rife with satanic Illuminati imagery. In the video, Catastrophe, played by Swift, is kicked out the window by Arson, Selena Gomez. Catastrophe is then rebuilt in a laboratory after she dies. What more proof do you need, people? So, if all these people are Illuminati puppets, why would they be slipping secret messages into the music, revealing the whole conspiracy? We have an answer for that, too. You see, most of the music you hear, in fact, every hit song since 1980 was written by Donald Marshall. Never heard of him? That's because he spent most of his life in a cloning center in British Columbia, Canada, near Thirsty Lake. The center is run by the Vril, the reptilian aliens that live on Earth, and the Queen of England. Well, assumably, Charles is in charge now. When Marshall was a child, it was discovered that he had an incredible ability to write songs, and his parents sold him to the Illuminati for this purpose. If he refuses to write, he is tortured. If the Illuminati overlords go too far and accidentally kill him, they simply clone another one and transfer his brain into the next model. This is the reason the secret messages appear in so many songs. They are all written by Marshall. I swear you can't make this shit up. Or, I guess you can. Marshall has gone on to become an Illuminati whistleblower, officially leaving the music career and dedicating his life to the truth. I've included a link to his website in the show notes. Now, lizard people, Illuminati, celebrity clone rabbit hole is very deep. There are entire podcasts dedicated to just that. So, to stay true to the theme of this episode of just rapid fire crazy, we must move on. While we're on the topic of music, in the movie Yesterday, which Ed Sheeran appears in, the Beatles never existed in the current reality, and the protagonist, Jack Malek, is the only one to remember them. As such, he does what any struggling musician would do with that knowledge, and he takes full advantage of it, releasing every song as if it were his own. There are some who suggest that this is the case with Ed Sheeran. Obviously not with the Beatles because we still remember them, but with some other alternate reality British band. Why? Because no one is talented enough to write so many hit songs on their own. No one except for that star in the other dimension, of course. This is very similar to another story from 2009 and the release of the album Everyday Chemistry. According to James Richards, which is probably not his real name, on the website thebeatlesneverbroakeup.com, he met a man named Jonas in another dimension. The two chatted for a time about their love of the Beatles, and it was revealed that in Jonas's reality, they still existed and continued to make music. It isn't clear what exactly happened to Yoko in this timeline, but that's neither here nor there. Richards snuck a copy of the Beatles' newest album into his pocket and took it back with him. He chose not to profit off of it, but instead released it free to the public online. If elements of these songs sound familiar, it's because they are mashups of various songs from the solo careers of the band members. James Richards, of course, has an answer for that. He explains that that's just because they come from a world where the band stayed together. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't have had some of the same ideas. The link is in the notes if anyone wants to give a listen to see for themselves. Finland doesn't exist. This is Garfield in Wyoming, but with an entire country. It's one of those theories like the bird drone conspiracy. It started tongue-in-cheek and just took on a life of its own. The theory goes that Russia and Japan created Finland in 1917 so Japanese fishermen could fish in the area of the ocean where they claimed this landmass known as Finland existed. They then shipped these fish via the Trans-Siberian Railway, which was built for the sole purpose in 1891. And before you say there aren't any fish on the railroad, that's because they're shipped in packaging labeled Nokia. You know, the invincible Finnish cell phones that everyone had in the 90s. Japan is the biggest importer of Nokia products, and yet few people in Japan use Nokias. And the name Finland? What has fins? Fish. Obviously, this proves the Great Fish Cover-Up. This theory goes on to say that no country is that good. First in literacy, healthcare, freedom of the press. Yeah, okay, Bob. Sure, your girlfriend that you met online, she's 6'2" with blonde hair and blue eyes. But I can't meet her because she's out saving orphan poodle babies? Uh-huh. Now, before you say, but there are people in Finland, or I know people from Finland, or even I'm from Finland, the Finland conspiracy theorist believers would say, no, those people are from Sweden, Estonia, or Russia. There is no Finland. Since construction was completed of the Large Hadron Collider in 2008, it has been the subject of many strange conspiracies. According to one legend, the collider created a black hole in 2012 that destroyed the planet and reality as we know it. We just haven't realized it yet. Dion Strakovich, a physics professor from the University at Buffalo, actually addressed this with USA Today, stating, to create a black hole or wormhole, even microscopic ones, with our current technology, in the context of our standard theories of gravity, we need an accelerator as big as the whole universe. Despite this statement, the belief that a particle accelerator is going to open a portal into another dimension, or more specifically, to hell, continues to persist. In 2016, a video appeared that has since been deleted, where a group of cloaked individuals sacrificed a woman by stabbing her in front of a statue of the Hindu deity Shiva. This obviously didn't help the matter. Given the extreme security in the area, it has caused many theorists to argue that this was a sanctioned event. A spokesperson for CERN says thousands of scientists are welcomed every year, and some let their humor go too far. In December of 2010, there were an unprecedented number of shark attacks in the Red Sea off the coast of Egypt. This led to the belief that the Israeli intelligence group Mossad was using GPS-equipped sharks to target the Egyptian people.
You know, I have one simple request, and that is to have sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
This is disregarding the fact that those attacked were all tourists, 3 Russians, a Ukrainian, and a German, to be exact. In addition to the sharks, there are also the belief in spy dolphins. These rumors exist in Israel, Russia, and the United States. The U.S. Navy admits to using dolphins to find mines and enemy swimmers, but denies ever using them to kill the enemy. In fact, the Navy goes as far as to state that dolphins cannot be trained to kill. Russia also admits to using dolphins for detection. Hamas claimed they captured an Israeli spy dolphin that was stripped of its will and trained to murder. It was armed with surveillance equipment and killer arrows. So, you would expect the grave of Jesus Christ to be somewhere in Israel, or more specifically, Jerusalem. However, the small town of Shingo, Japan, makes the claim that Jesus not only is buried there, but he lived there until he died of natural causes at the age of 106. Stick with me here, people, because this one gets wacky. Now, in the Bible, the story of Jesus has a large gap. We go from Jesus at the temple age 12, and then we have Jesus getting baptized by John the Baptist at 30. This has led to many legends about the missing 18 years. This is where the Shingo story begins. At the age of 21, as the story goes, Jesus moved to Japan to study theology and lived in the area until his 30s when he returned to Judea. Jesus arrived in Japan at the western port of Amano-Hashidite, where he met and studied with a great master near Mount Fuji. As we know from the Bible story, at the age of 33, Christ was crucified. Well, in the Shingo legend, it was not Jesus, but Isukuri, his brother, who was crucified. As the plaque near the burial site puts it, Isukuri casually took his brother's place. Jesus then visited his disciples one last time before he trekked across Siberia to Alaska and then down to Japan. He brought with him his brother's severed ear and a lock of his mother's hair. Once in Japan, he assumed the name Diakotor Jori. He married a farmer's daughter, Miyaku, and fathered 3 children. He lived there until his passing at 106. He was buried in a mound on a hilltop, surrounded by a small white fence. Beside him is another grave with his brother's severed ear. More than 20,000 people make a pilgrimage to the village every year to pay their respects and visit the nearby museum dedicated to the story. Our final story for today involves a mysterious object that has been orbiting the planet for hundreds, if not thousands of years. According to some, this is little more than a series of unconnected observations and misinterpretations that have occurred over decades. Nonetheless, the myth of the Black Knight satellite has persisted, and there are some who believe that it is proof that we are being observed by extraterrestrials. Radio signals heard by Tesla in 1899 are often ascribed to the Black Knight satellite. These, however, have been debunked. Most scientists, even fridge scientists that believe the Black Knight is real, now say that Tesla observed pulsars. The first reputed sighting of the Black Knight came in 1954 when Marine Corps naval aviator turned UFO researcher Donald Kehoe stated that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 satellites orbiting Earth. No government had the technology to launch a satellite at the time. Sputnik 1, the first satellite in space, was launched by the Russians 3 years later. One of the biggest facts pointed to as proof that this is an extraterrestrial satellite is the fact that the Black Knight orbits the planet in a polar orbit, which was not a technology we had when the Black Knight was first observed. Additional reports appeared throughout the 60s and even got recognition in the mainstream media. The 13,000-year-old theory comes from the 1973 analysis of long delay radio echoes by Scottish author Duncan Lunan. His research suggested that it originated from a planet in the Epsilon Bovis solar system. From the solar map to line up correctly with Lunan's findings, you have to go back 13,000 years. He has since stated that his study was unscientific and full of errors, but this hasn't stopped people from including his work in the lore. Perhaps the greatest photographic evidence of the Black Knight that exists today is a photo taken from 1998 during the STS-88 mission showing what NASA has stated is nothing more than a thermal blanket that floated away to join the massive amounts of space junk that orbit our planet. For those looking for some kind of definitive proof, unfortunately, according to some legends, the Illuminati, because of course they got involved, supposedly shot down the Black Knight in 2017. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Until next time, I'm Christopher Damian. This is History, Mystery, and the Unexplained, and thanks for listening. If you have anything you'd like me to research, or maybe you want me to do a deeper dive into one of the stories I did here today, let me know. I could be found at HM Unexplained on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, history.mystery.u on TikTok, or if you prefer email, I could always be reached at hmunexplained@gmail.com. I'll see you next week, or if you enjoy my daily shorts, I'll see you tomorrow.